Live from the UK, broadcasting around the world. You're listening to the Mic Drop Club, hosted by Douglas Hammond-Dishay. Message received. You do not need to know what you need. Just engage with the podcast feed. Providing weekly insights into cool stuff we've read, saw, did, or heard about what made us say, wow, eureka, damn, nothing is off limits. If it motivates and inspires you to reach your goals, then it shall be discussed. Featuring guest interviews from high performers and people of influence, and weekly awards for the best mic drop moment. This podcast is guaranteed to leave you pumped up for the week ahead. Don't just live life. Make life boom.
Wow, what is saying, peeps? Hope you guys are good. Once in a while, when you go fishing and you feel something tugging at the line, you might catch a great white. And that's what we've done on the Mic Drop Club. We've managed to reel in Shane Tickell, the magical, extraordinary CEO, visionary health tech strategist, advocating for patients and healthcare professionals for years and delivering patient-focused software and services. This is a titan in the industry, in the health tech industry. This is one individual of over 20 years of experience running mission-critical software and data companies. So we're honored to welcome Shane to the Mic Drop Club. I just want you to tune in and listen to the pearls of wisdom that this guy will drop. Mic drop after mic drop after mic drop. And tune in. He has an exclusive. The embargo will be over. He has an exclusive announcement to make on the Mic Drop Club. So you guys tune in and enjoy. Shane, straight off the bat, how you doing? How's life treating you? Or how are you treating life?
Well, I'm full on, man. At the moment, I've never felt better, stronger, involved in more things. And I was literally just talking before. You get to an age where you think you suddenly find a bit of clarity. So, some people might have, some people might say you're having a midlife crisis. I feel I'm midlife enlightened. And people say, how are you involved in all these different things? And I'm kind of like, do you know what? I kind of don't know how other people aren't involved in lots more things than they are, because I find it kind of just easier. You get older, you get a little bit wiser. I got to be honest, Douglas, a couple of months ago, first time in 5 years, I took up running when my doctor said, don't run anymore. And I thought, well, actually, if I can run on soft stuff, it's not going to hurt my bones as much. And I'm just a changed man. So I've lost a couple of stone. But the thinking time in the mornings at sunrise, it's just amazing. And it's like clearing out your wardrobe of thoughts, whether it's for the day or whether it's things you've been carrying around. So I got to be honest, I'm on fire at the minute. Oh, no, excellent stuff. So are you a sun gazer? Do you want to be out when the sun is at its peak, as it were? No, I like it in the mornings. I love setting off in the dark and watching the sun come up. And if it's a clear day, oh my gosh, you've got to run in probably 40 minutes before. And when it arrives and you're sort of deep into your run by that point, it's kind of really amazing. No, that's kudos to you. And it's really refreshing to hear, because I too get the same sort of feedback in terms of you're doing too much. And my rebuttal to that, if you can call it rebuttal, is all of these are extensions of the same plan, it's execution of the same vision, which is all about transforming people, places, and things. So everything I do is aligned to that vision. And you have to hit things at different angles. And so I don't view, yes, I could be tired as well. And sometimes you think, you stop the clock. But it's as long as I feel I'm moving in the right direction, which is important. Yeah, I'm a believer of that. I'm a firm believer of that officer and gentleman moment when you got the drill sergeant screaming down in your ear and giving you, give me 10 more. But that's all I got, sir. Give me another 20 then. I'm a firm believer that we have a lot more capacity. And I think, just think about framing this conversation around technology. If AI is amplifying the human's capabilities, right, we still need to be thinking about what can we do as a human to amplify our physical being.
as much as we can, whilst because of every Earth year that ticks along, that ability to go out for a run, that ability to retain information, that ability to think coherently is slowly dissipating. And I think for those who can, I think, and looking at you and reading through your impressive bio, it's just like, wow. So almost like, you know what? That's on my bucket list. That's on my bucket list. I wish I could do that. If only I could do that. And you're sitting there with full grace, having done all of these things, you know, and these are current positions. So I'll repeat, current positions. CEO, founder of Voro Health Technologies, I'm not going to say this, founder and CEO of Temple Black Quantum Health Tech, chair of NHS Frontline Digitization Supplier Forum, strategic advisor to institution, healthcare, social care managers. Wow. Ambassador to Academy of Fabulous Stuff. That just the name alone just makes me smile. It just, you know, Ambassador to Academy of Fabulous Stuff. Excellent. Coach to CEOs and techs, small to medium enterprises and PLCs. Mentor to NHS Digital Academy, Imperial College, and Harvard Medical School Cohort 1 and 2. You're an ally. And I know you're a beautiful ally as well. I like to big up all the allies all the time, you know, that walk the ethical path with us. You know, you stand up for anti-racism, anti-bullying, anti-sexism, an activist in health and technology industry as well. Honorary lecturer of College of Contemporary Health, you know, and that is in one lifetime, people.
Okay, guys, everybody ready?
Listen, we're all very blessed, Douglas. I mean, the titles don't, you know, they're very, very kind, but you know, you get opportunities, and some of them aren't all grand. You know, they're not all grand things, but I feel very privileged. For my entire life, I've been given knowledge shared by people, whether it's school, whether it was books, but when I really started my career, which was at the Portland Hospital for Women and Children in London, I thought I went in to be a computer operator. I thought in the late 80s, computers, healthcare, sounds good to me. Turned out I was a shelf stacker. I just used to fill the stock up in the different wards and the special care baby units and the theatres and stuff. Well, in all seriousness, I specialised and I've been trained in buying. And you're buying for a constituent. And whether that is, and we were working with world-leading surgeons, whether it was in IVF, obstetrics, gynecology. And I had to understand what it was that they needed, whether it was a laparoscope, whether it was a glass syringe, and I had to understand why. And I had to go around the world, not literally, but search the world for the best possible equipment. And they shared their knowledge with me. After theatres at 8, 9 o'clock at night, I'd go and sit downstairs with them and they'd say, right, we've finished up. Okay, here's why I need a glass syringe when I'm doing an epidural and not a plastic one. And they would share this knowledge willingly. And then later in my life, I was very blessed to go and work at some very small companies, a very small 4-man company, and we were doing some really tricky software, and it really standing on the shoulders of giants here, algorithms for dosing warfarin, which is an incredibly complex, dangerous drug. And we were using it to help with about 170 or 180 different kind of medical disciplines and diseases and things. It was just incredible. And we took the same kind of theory and we launched into oncology and rheumatology. And I just knew nothing. I wasn't medically trained in any way, shape or form. And I went to universities, I went to conferences, I sat with doctors, I went to their clinics, I sat with them, and they gave of that time freely. And to this day, people still give knowledge freely. So I realized about 20 years ago, the best thing I can do is give that back. So about 20% of everything that I do in my time, at least 20% is sharing that knowledge or helping people share that knowledge. And today, I think I've just counted up, I'm mentor to 11 people. I've just dropped 2, because I have a deal with them. If I'm mentoring you, who are you mentoring? Who are you passing that on to? And sometimes people don't get that. So I sort of, okay, well, we'll let it go for now.
Excellent. And the mentoring one got me, and the way you have the rules to basically pass on the baton to the people you mentor. Where does that come from? You know, for people to trust you with knowledge, you know, and knowledge is, we don't take knowledge lightly. Somebody must see something in you. Where do you get this hunger for knowledge in the first place?
Oh my gosh, that is the word. It's hunger. There is this curiosity. As a child, I remember probably being 6 or 7 years old in my bedroom, and it was a cold house. You know, we had one fire in the living room. I'd be in my bedroom. You could see your breath. You know, there was frost on the inside of the window. But I was one of those guys who had the torch and a book. And mum and dad had said, go to sleep. And I was just curiously away, furious. And I think the single biggest gift I was given in life was to be able to read, because your imagination. So I think a lot of people have very vivid imaginations, and I do now, incredibly, to the point where if you tell me something, you know, sometimes things that are too clinical, I'm too vivid with, and I'm not good with the sight of blood. So, you know, I can make myself queasy almost. It's that powerful. But I think just the curiosity of how does that work? Why do people think like that? And I think one of my single biggest interests is people. How do they work? Why do they think that way? How can we make things better? And I think, you know, in all honesty, Douglas, I grew up in a household of love. You know, my father absolutely cherished the ground that we walked on. It wasn't an easy upbringing. I'm not sure anybody's is. You know, there were challenges with it, but actually it was just one of love and curiosity, and go out and see the world, and what else can you do with it, and what can it do for you, and I still have this absolute classic. I don't know if you can see behind me. I mean, my wife thinks I'm nuts. I've got over 500 books there. I've got another 500 or 600 in another room, and I've given 500 away. That's just the books. That's not the online material. I give loads of books away to people as well, and recommend them. And I'm just fascinated to learn it all the time.
You're a man of my heart, because I'm the same when it comes to books. I absolutely love them. If I could design a house, it will start with a grand entrance to a library. Before you go see any other room, like Lex Luthor, Superman 1, you know, stacks of books, you know. That to me is just like, it's like heaven. Yes, I do audiobooks and all the other things just because of my timing. But I'm always got a book not too far. Always not too far. Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty. You know, I'm constantly at it. You know, my journey was, I did not... So, I sometimes have several on the go, but I don't like when I do that. It's sometimes necessity, and I've lost my book where I put it and I picked up another book. But if I'm focused, I like to, because I'm a scribbler. So when I butcher my books, when I read my books, I write in them notes. I write like what I'm thinking and feeling, because my dad, who is a philosopher as well, he done quite a lot of things in his time, but he told me to be active. He taught me a way of learning, because I thought when I was young, I can't really learn. I wasn't really reading. I got 4 sisters, so I never gravitated to reading. Computer magazines, Ace, Crash, those are the things I was reading. But I wasn't reading until my sisters said, okay, if you want to be in our club, you have to start reading what we're reading. And so I started reading Sweet Valley High books. And I started loving it. And I've been loving reading like literally ever since. I think it just gives you advantage, a distinct advantage, even for mindfulness. That you can't read when you're anxious. You got to control your breath. You got to control your heart rate. These are the byproducts that people don't really talk about when you just read. It's not just reading for the sake of just, it's the exercise, it's the conscious exercise that we do for the retainment of information, and the fact that you give back, which is fantastic. So you've been mentoring, you know, so what got you into mentoring? What do you get out of the whole mentoring situation?
This is weird, right? This is weird. So mentoring came to me. People just come and say, would you be my mentor? And I was kind of like, I don't feel qualified. They're like, well, can I just talk to you then? And it started off like that, really. And one of the things I want to do, Douglas, and maybe, you know, you're helping me by giving me a little bit of a platform here today, but one of the things I want to start writing about and explaining to people about is some of the things I've learned through mentoring other people. Now, I'm lucky today. I have 3 mentors. I have one who's 10 years older than me, one who's 15 years older than me, and one who's about 27 years older than me. I mean, I'm so blessed. These are great, great, kind people who, you know, your heart's just warmed by the fact that they think about you and they're there to help. So, I mean, and mentoring isn't, you know, people think it's a discipline you have to do 2 hours a month, and it's not really. You can come and go. And I do have a few rules with it that I've learned over time. So firstly, people came to me and they ask you questions like, and then what I've learned to do is create a safe environment like you've created here. And I say, look, first and foremost, if we do this, there's a couple of things between us. It's a bit of a contract, but it's an honor. One, it's a privilege for you to share anything with me. You must know that whatever you tell me, I will never share with anybody else. And it can't, you know, business and life isn't separate. So sometimes we blend into, you know, our daily lives. There are some pressures. So whatever you say to me about your life, your work is absolutely sacrosanct. And I won't share any of that. Number two, know that the only thing I want for you is good things. So anything that I ask you about, anything I challenge you about, it's only with your success and kindness, me giving you kindness in mind. That's all it is. And look, let's give it a go. Let's see if we get on. And if we do, that's great. And then it might be we do it for a little while and we take a pause. And it might be for both of us. And I have had that. Like I say, with 11 of the people I work with, it's an absolute privilege. The other two, it's been a privilege. But I've sort of said, look, do you want to kind of, contribute? You've done really well. Some people, one guy followed my advice and won about £7 million worth of business off it. I'm like, great. It's not just about the money. I mean, I work with some not-for-profits, right? And I'm like, you could spend, not gift them anything, but they could do some work for you as part of your, your ESG things, kind of, your support and nothing's going back, nothing, no knowledge sharing, what have you. So I kind of create that safe space. And then what you try and do is listen to people. But it's like one of the questions I got really early on. A young lady said, right, my big question is this. Have you always been like this? And I was like, well, I don't know what you mean. And what she meant was confident. You seem to be able to say the right things in the right way. You seem to be able to get your point across. You seem to be able to challenge constructively. And I'm like, no. And the thing I want to get across to people of all ages is nobody is born a leader. I don't think people are born confident. I think challenges create growth as individuals. And I've been incredibly insecure. I mean, sometimes even now I get incredibly insecure and nervous, but I try and make it never about me. It's about the mission, and it's about the thing I signed up to. In my case, with technology and health technology, I signed up to that 25 years ago, and it's been my privilege. And I say to serve. It is my privilege to serve. You might be a CEO, but the best leaders in these books will tell you level 5 leadership is all about being a servant. And that's my privilege. And I genuinely, my heart sings, I get emotional probably every day. At some point during the day, I get emotional about why I do this, who I'm doing it for, the feeling you get from doing it. And also, being candid, you fail every day. If you're pushing the boundaries, you fail. And people was like you were saying before, people say, oh, you're doing too much or whatever. I've run a long distance to try and get to this meeting in time. And I could have gone, oh, I'm too hot, I'm too sweaty, I'm not in the right place. And I'm like, no, I don't want to let Douglas down. Make it happen. And I would, and again, studying all the time. I mean, look, I'm even going back. This book I've read 30 years ago, gave this copy to a friend 10 years ago. They've scribbled all over it, giving me back. And I'm reading it now 30 years later. But it reminds me because it's this one in particular, Mark H. McCormack, started on his own and created a business that was in 160 countries. What they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. It's one of the best books I ever read. But Harvard Business say the best leadership teams of the best companies get things right about 2/3 of the time, about 65% of the time. And you think, wow, so 35% of the time they get it wrong, and they're the best. But what the really good teams do, they talk and they make the next best decision. And that's the thing is quite often we go, oh, we made a decision. Oh, God, we thought about it. We've got it. Oh, we haven't quite got it. But if you keep working and communicating and it's about the mission, then for me, it's that's what keeps me going and keeps me out of my head. If I get on stage or like we're doing this now, to me, it's not about me. It's about the message. You know, there's a few messages I'd like to get out on this discussion. And I'd like to, you know, I want to spread the word and get feedback. And I want to learn from that curiosity thing. What do other people think?
No, it's good. It's so beautiful just to hear you just wax lyrical about things that I've been drumming home for a long, long time. As the platform is the Mic Drop Club. And the Mic Drop Club came about when I was working with young inner city kids as a role model, father figure to them. So they'll come and see me at work. I teach them how to make cups of tea, how to socialize, and all this kind of stuff before I got into mental health. And we were thinking about getting out, practicing your voice and, you know, experimenting, debating, all that kind of stuff, you know, because, you know, when you're least educated, you might find health outcomes are diminished. You might find you become more violent because you cannot express yourself. You know, so we thought, let's do podcasts. And this was back in the day. This is how the Mic Drop Club came about. And Obama was had that meme when he's dropping the mic. And we were talking in a little group of us. I said, look, what is your mic drop moment? And we defined it ourselves as a collective, as a moment of clarity where you go, aha. It could have been the time you left home to run away from abusive parents, the time you stopped taking drugs, the time you decide to enroll for university. It's your mic drop moments. So, Shane, what are your mic drop moments? It's the times you got it, whether in the business world where you just, when all the ducks aligned, all the dominoes fell in the right order, thinking, I get it. Whether it's positive or negative, it's only positional, isn't it? Because some things can be perceived as positive, let alone down the line, he said, no, that was the wrong thing. Just when was your aha? That I see in your professional career.
Well, listen, I mean, crikey. I wish you'd given me about a month to think about this one. This is a big question. I mean, I always go pretty much with my instincts. And there are 2 or 3 probably big moments in my life. But let me talk about the most recent. And it literally has come together in the last few months. So I'm 53. I've been working since I was 17. Let's go to 15. Started working then, actually. But my first proper job at 17. And it's taken me till now to have one of those big, I'd say, mic drop moments. So I think I've had 3 careers, 25 years. The most pertinent is this health technology. And let me first say, I consider myself to be a patient and clinician advocate. That's my role. How can I make healthcare better that improves people's lives? And how can I make the people who deliver that health and care, how can I make their jobs easier? That's my remit every day. It's not about selling technology for technology's sake or transformation. It's about actually getting to the nitty gritty. And the driver for that was my father. He was very well looked after. He had a blood cancer, which was incurable. And this is back in the 90s. And his haematologists and people at Christie's Manchester once a year used to look after him. And they kept him alive for 10 years. Now, today, we kind of think that's okay. But in the early 90s, that was like living with a chronic disease. It was amazing. So we got 10 years out of him. And his condition flipped to it was irrecoverable. And I sensed at the time it was because he hadn't been followed up as disciplined as he would normally, and he'd missed, not he, but things had just flipped. And I think we'd have had him a little bit longer. Anyway, I was a young man. His consultant, who I knew very well, rang me up and said, look, Shane, Dad's conditions deteriorated. We are left with a couple of decisions. Now, I'd spent 5 years working in a women and children's hospital, and I'd seen kids come in with like 2 or 3 year olds come in and have to have leukemia, and I'd seen, people die from all kinds of diseases, but also survive. And my dad was very, he was 7.5 stone, and they said, look, he hasn't got long. We could give him some chemotherapy, and I thought, oh my God, it would just be brutal. And I said, well, what's the outcome? Well, it might keep him alive, a few months longer. I said, well, what if we don't? What if we just give him palliative care? And they said, well, he's probably got, 3 to 6 months. And you feel at the time that you're giving your permission and support for that to happen. You're actually not. The doctors are doing is helping you get used to the idea that, there isn't a good outcome from this. This is a way of helping you understand it. So I spent the next 6 months with my father at his side, pretty much at his side. And very much the last few weeks and the last sort of 7 days and nights at his side, going through everything. And we had 22 agencies involved in his care, I realized afterwards, from acute to community, hospices, community nurses, all kinds of people, ourselves, the GP, you know, and people supporting my mum through charities and all kinds of things. This was in 1996. And it was such a profound effect on me. But also, he was my best friend. It was my greatest privilege to be with him. I washed him, I dressed him, I held him. And after he went, nothing had any kind of meaning for me whatsoever. I couldn't read a newspaper. I couldn't listen to the radio for months. And then I sort of thought, okay, what do we want to do here? And it was about a year or so later, and I thought, maybe I can help with healthcare. Maybe I can get rid of this overriding feeling that we could have helped him live a little bit longer. It wasn't about length necessarily, but maybe he could have lived to see his grandchildren born, or I don't know.
That's so profound. And rest in peace to your pups. Mic drop for your pups. You know, he raised you well, because I'm sure through the work that you've been doing ever since, you're prolonging life, you're adding value, helping people live a better quality of life. You know, palliative care, I saw on your feed, you know, is so understated. You know, it's one of those environments that, as a clinician I worked in, I was terrified my first time walking into those things. I thought, my heart can't take the pain. But it was the funniest, most loving environment I've ever worked in. But you have to be in there to see people doing fantastic work, giving people, you know, grace, dignity, you know, their wishes to go out well, you know, and yeah, it did transform me, the way I view life, the way I view people as well. So no, I can see that being so profound on yourself, Shane.
I mean, I was looking, you know, early in life, when babies are born, it's mainly a celebration, vastly a celebration. I've got 4 beautiful children, but at the end of life, that celebration of life, and I've had the privilege now to be with 4 loved ones right at their end of life and sit with them for days and nights in different circumstances. And it's the single biggest privilege, other than bringing your own children, I think, into the world. And yeah, it has had a profound effect. But from that mic drop moment, if you like, that set off what I'm doing now. And I just decided, for the mission for my rest of my life, is to try and use technology for the best possible reasons. And it still fascinates me. Even today, you know, I did a lecture this morning on implantable technologies, cutting edge stuff, and I still feel an absolute newbie in the room. So, yeah. And yeah.
How do you reconcile that, feeling so young and fresh on a subject that's so cutting edge? And, you know, sometimes they expect you to geek out, and you're equally a fan as you are a student.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. So, look, I got been 4 years ago, I decided to change direction a bit, because I'd been running EPR companies, mission critical companies, for 20 years. And I always want to do a lot faster. And I was kind of hindered by investors and circumstances. So I went, okay, let's just drop that. We'll give that to other people. Now we're going to start and move on. So that's why I created Temple Black, because I don't like titles, but I didn't know I was kind of a health strategist. I can see 7 things and go, well, it just makes sense to put them together. And I didn't know that was a talent. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-40s and people go, yeah, people don't normally do that, Shane. That is something that's just a bit unique. So that's when I created Temple Black and went, look, there's a bunch of stuff we could do a bit better here. So that's my strategy company. And I was very privileged to get involved in what is now Varroa Health Technologies, which runs one of Europe's largest real-time databases in London for about 7 million citizens. And what we do is we just take data of all kinds and we normalize it. Because for 25 years, many of us have been trying to integrate and interoperate and use standards. I mean, that's all good, but I do fear we could be another 25 years at it. So I'm very privileged to get involved in that. And then more recently, I've been involved in a not-for-profit, which is owned by a charity that does health scores. And it's about your cardiovascular score and cancer and falls risk and all kinds of things. All these things are just absolutely fascinating and amazing. But the last 4 years, I've literally gone back to primary school to learn some of the absolute most basics. And I have worked with geniuses who've been, you know, they are world class at what they do. They're 20, 25 plus years at it. And I'm gathering all this knowledge and I'm going, right, I kind of know there's something out here we can do, but what is it? And literally in the last 4 months, it's all come together. And this is where I'm kind of at. We have got some amazing technologies that are here and they exist today that aren't deployed, they aren't sold, they don't get the shine, the light on them, and people don't understand them. And to me, when I was buying as a young man and then selling later in my career, it's the same thing. It's about education. It's about it's about listening to what people's needs are. So we call them problems typically, but I often call them opportunities. Opportunities come before that. We listen to what people's needs or difficulties are while they're doing a thing. And then we go, okay, so here are some answers. And what if we did that? Would that make it easier? Well, it might do. Okay, well, what if we iterated? And that to me is what this industry is about. It's about listening, learning, watching. And people will tell you when I was in the EPR business, as a CEO, I never really had my own desk or office. I had a desk, but I didn't have an office. And 80% of the time I was nowhere to be seen because I was on the front line. And I would be in ED departments at midnight or 2 a.m. I'd be in the hospital, walking the floors and the wards. I'd be in at 7 a.m. watching people come in because I wanted to understand what isn't written in the books and what you don't get in meeting rooms. I wanted to see it in real life. And as it happened through my own life experiences of family and other people who've, passed away or had chronic diseases, I've seen a lot in public sector, private sector, right the way throughout the UK, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. And I've traveled a third of the world looking at healthcare as well. And to me, it's a privilege to then try and gather all that information and do something with it. So what I've come up with now, which is my fourth venture and the biggest thing I've ever done in my career, we're looking to launch in the new year, is 7 pillars, 7 components of an architecture, which is bigger than anything real time that we've got today. And that's, if you like, I think the best thing I can contribute to society over the next 10 years. Is to build that architecture and also to shine a light on the companies. And I am really putting the flag up for British small to medium enterprises. And I'll take a break, Douglas, but I want to talk to you about small to medium enterprises and how we contribute to society and the economics of this country.
Oh, excellent. Oh, wow. Wow. In fact, NDA, that was our our peak social media content last week. It's excellent. Planting your flag, where do you want to plant your flag? When you have probably, 30 years of real productivity left in you, planting that flag early and say, here's where I want to, make my stand on these 7 pillars of architecture. Yeah, I'll be keen. I'll be watching that for keen eye. I'm not going to go into the NTA territory to find out more, but for all you listeners out there, it's going to be big. If Shane is doing it and he can see things, it is going to be big. Because 7 pillars, oh my God, I know it's going to interface with so many components of the care continuum. That's all I can say. I know that.
That's right. We're going to bring it all together. What I do want to do is set out a bit of a stall for British small to medium enterprises, if you'll indulge me. So I don't know if people are aware. So all this stuff is on the National Audit Office website today, and it's live, right? That's where I get my information from. So I don't know if people are aware, but in the private sector, there's about 25 million working people in the UK, and of which 20,000 businesses are what we call large. 32,000-ish, I think it's 34,000 are medium. So that's sort of 250 people plus. 1.2 million businesses employ less than 25 people, the small businesses. And they employ 16 million people in the UK today. And the medium and large employ 8 million. So you quite often find that the small to medium enterprises are in the room and they don't have the big brand and they don't have the big balance sheet, and therefore they're not given the same credibility. And what I tend to find, what I've decided is, hang on, we need more of a voice because collectively we are very big. Now, one of the roles, if I may mention, is TechUK. And TechUK, I've been very privileged to be on the council of the Health and Social Care Council for the last 4 years, which is voted for, and it's a voluntary position. And the members vote. And there's about 1,000 members in TechUK, of which 400 work in health and social care. And I don't know quite the split is between small and large, but I've asked that question. And I put the flag up really for small to medium enterprises for the last few years. And what I'm delighted to say is that this year, so every year, we have a council of 25 people from all types of businesses. and it's a privilege to serve on that. Over the last 4 years, every year we vote for 2 vice chairs and 1 chair. And I've been very privileged to be a vice chair for the last few years. And that's why I'm involved in chairing the NHS EPR vendors. I've spent 2 years helping revise and look at the NHS procurement frameworks, and did that directly with the NHS commercial team. And also we set up a group for the consultancies that supply hospitals and support EPR vendors as well, to name a few. But this year, right now, when this podcast goes out, I will be chair of the TechUK Health and Social Care Council for 2024.
Okay, guys, everybody ready?
Well done.
Atomic
And they're going to be
drop.
mic drops after mic drops, atomic mic drops for that, because I can't think of anybody more suited to the position, because it takes animated individuals. The fact that you are a CEO of an EPR company with no desk. I know CEOs of tech companies that hot desk. I know CEOs of tech companies that have a desk in a communal place, i.e. they've nested. It's just in a communal place, right? But you being at the coalface with clinicians, with patients, service users, clients, understanding things. So there's all this thing where I'm a big believer of people that know and people that know about things. And for too long in the health tech space, we've got more people that know about health. And they can get into very senior positions knowing about health, but they don't have a knowing. And the knowing comes from actually doing, It's like they've learned how to swim by reading a book, but never touched the water. You have a knowing. And I think that gives you a competitive advantage, because you sacrifice your time, your sleep. You could be doing stuff with your family to actually walk that path. And it's a lonely walk as a CEO. So you becoming the chair, I salute you, mic drop for you again. I can't wait for you to turn the dial. Because as we spoke just before we pressed record, guys, you said we were speaking about trends for 2024. One thing I think we both can agree on, the dial is going to be turned full throttle, whether or not we like it or not, because AI is coming to pivot and change everything. So some of the stats you're talking about, small enterprises employing more people with AI, do you think AI is going to change that ratio for smaller companies, say, for example, employing staff that they can actually get away with the mediocre results some staff members do, because the pool of real talented, passionate individuals within this space, is diminishing, I would say. You could get somebody on payroll that doesn't have the same level of as enthusiasm as you, but AI can do the same work, get 80% of it right, and you have to make the call. You have to make the call.
That's the trick, right? So when I was doing algorithms 25 years ago, before we were talking about AI, and true AI, ChatGPT's revolutionized things in the last 12 months, but true AI, how far is it away? But it doesn't kind of matter what you call it. Forget the hype. What does it do? And you've hit the nail on the head. It's the 80% piece. So when I started in anticoagulation therapy and rheumatology and oncology 25 years ago, I don't know if people know, but 80% of the reason, and I'm told by some of my clinical colleagues, I'm underestimating this, but 80, they say sometimes up to 90, 95% of the reason we go out and seek healthcare, i.e. go to the doctors, is actually for reassurance. What's this lump, bump, rash? My child's, not so good. Mom's not so good. What is it? And actually 80% of the time, it's okay. It's not that there isn't something going on, but it's in range, or it's to be expected, or it's normal. And that's where we've got a backlog of 7 million people on a waiting list. Actually, we don't. But the numbers say that we do. We know, and this is fact. Go and read and listen to what Sir Jim Mackey has published. He's been responsible for that list. 50% of the people on that list probably shouldn't be on there. It's just, and I was speaking to another CEO of a wonderfully big multi-billion-pound hospital, said, our working practices were designed 160 years ago. So we call people back, we put them on lists. 50% of the people should not be on that list. for medical surgical. 25% of the people are probably on the list for mental health reasons, but the doctors who are treating medical and surgical things haven't been trained what to do with them. So they say, well, come back and see me in 3 to 6 months' time. So you could immediately almost get rid of 75% of that list. However, how do we know in any list, anywhere in the country, who are our most important and challenged patients? Who are the ones that are at highest risk? So if we can use AI, and we can use AI to get to the 20%, and the 20% is the 10% that are really curious, and the 10% that's really difficult, complex, that our wonderful clinicians, nurses, staff, doctors, professors are trained to work on. So you're right, Douglas, it's getting rid of it's wrong to say the mundane, because it's not mundane, it's important. But if it's done manually, as opposed to being done safely with machine and intelligence, then we can relieve the workforce. We can let them focus on the people who are at that highest stage in life, that last 2 years or whatever it is. But also, then we can start, you said something earlier in this conversation I want to go back to. So one of my biggest passions is social determinants of health. If and I'm so inspired about why you started this podcast and the mic drop piece, because actually there's so much of our population, no matter where they are, they don't have the best environment, or there could be multi-generational reasons why that they have a culture in their family, their street, their town, which isn't the healthiest, isn't the best, giving the best opportunities. So we're fighting, right? So 2023 for me was about, okay, we'll spend some big money, we'll employ some big companies, and we'll start to get people out of hospital quicker, because we know maybe 30 to 50% of people in hospital shouldn't be there either. They're stuck. Well, I'd rather 2024 is more about let's stop them getting into hospital. Let's predict, let's prevent, let's really keep people out of hospital. So that's nothing new. Shane's not telling you anything that we haven't all been trying to do for several decades. But how can we do it at scale when, for instance, in London, we have 3 ICSs with Verore's data for over 900 GP practices that is used for direct care. That means it's identifiable. The same data is then de-identified for population health. Population health is let's have a look at, for instance, we've just done an area in East London. Sorry, we haven't. We've provided data to people who have looked for men, for black and ethnic minority men who haven't had a prostate exam during this age range, during this period because of COVID. And hopefully what we can do is predict and prevent prostate cancer. So there are hundreds of examples of this, if not thousands, that we can do with the same data. But to me, and look, I'm going on a bit, so I do apologize, but this is so important now. I feel for the people, the leaders in NHS, government, Treasury, and what have you, because they've all got cycles to go through. One of the recent procurements, very big, it must have started 4 years ago. Someone came up with an idea, then you got to build a business case, then you got to run a procurement, then you got to make a decision and buy something. And by the time that's happened, you haven't even installed anything yet, it's kind of 4 years. And things have moved on. And so actually, I think the opportunity, particularly for small to medium enterprises, is agility. And it's not an us versus them. It's not a small versus large. It is actually, and this is a big thing for me in 2024. Number one, I really want to shine a light on those SMEs. But two, because they're so, they're so agile. And they're not perfect. They're all lacking something somewhere. But actually, the big companies don't have the agility. They don't take the risk. And that person you said, the guys who hide in businesses, I've had it. I've seen it. In small to medium enterprises, you can't really hide. Big companies, you can. People can hide. I've seen it myself. They can hide for years. They bounce around with new titles, never staying quite long enough until they get caught out. So with artificial intelligence, the opportunities are immense if we're smart with it.
Yeah, and you're right. And just to continue on the gravy train that we're on in terms of AI, as we take a look at the empowered citizen. COVID changed everybody, changed the whole dynamic. We're all expert health consumers now. It's touched us in a way that we cannot see or unsee what we've seen. Whether you're pro-vaccination or not, or not to vaccinate, you've been touched by health. So, and also AI is a consumer-grade application, software piece of kit that anybody can leverage. My in-laws in Cumbria, they I bought her a Amazon Dot like 3 years ago. An Amazon Dot, a small round one. When she comes down, she's going to be coming down in the next 2 weeks for Christmas. She misses it. And she argues with I've got to say it quietly because you can hear. So when she comes here, she complains that my one doesn't recognize her commands as much as... So that companionship...
She's got a complete accent, Douglas, because that's where I'm from, you know that, do you?
Yeah.
I'm from Westmoreland originally. Yeah.
I'm Penrith.
So I'm a bit further south, but we
Kirk
have our
Stevens.
own language. Very good, yeah.
But you've seen this companionship from somebody that was hesitant around technology to somebody that's then embracing this voice, as it were, for her that talks to her, tells her about the weather, tells her about the news, gives her great recipes. And that combats loneliness. And when I've been working in mental health for such a long time now that, some of the social determinants, as you're mentioning there, sit outside of the health panacea, completely out. So if there was I just done a disaster recovery piece for a company I'm supporting, SME, disaster recovery document for them. And they were talking about what happens if the power outage or, active lightning, no data. So I said, okay, fine. Think about this now. What happens if we have everything going to cloud, we've got no redundancy, care will still take place, but the social determinants that we are talking about sit outside of health. In schools, your teacher would probably know more about the health and well-being of a child than a GP will ever do. Seeing poor Johnny coming in with knock knees, looking malnourished, lack of confidence, but where does that data go in? It's nothing to do with health per se, but it's absolutely all to do with health. Housing, as you said, the digital divide is my big push, to ensure that marginalized communities get access to this. Now, the role I do as a counsellor as well is I see it now where during COVID, poor communities got access to a laptop. Fantastic. So kids can do the work. But it's one laptop between 3 or 4. And then in a post-COVID environment, a lot of those schools took back those laptops, which were already old anyway, which they would end up destroying. But the companies that in good faith gave those laptops also took them back. And you're just thinking, and you look at these children thinking, these children got so much potential. They come into the world with tremendous ability. They are born for this time, and yet they don't have access to technology. If they do, they don't have electricity because their parents on a meter. That stuff breaks my heart. And I think if we can do something to really make sure that as a baseline, if I put a wish list out there, if I was Aladdin, I would say as a baseline, broadband should be free for everybody at minimum spec, because you need that to build infrastructure on top. Because some of the data sets that we need for marginalized communities, we talk about prostate cancer in the Black communities and stuff. Well, how are you going to get access to that unique data set? There's a trust issue that's over and beyond health. Not everybody's accessible. But if there was a broad basis for it, the whole UK has a minimum bandwidth for broadband. You can then build on top of that something. So maybe that could be a pillar.
Yeah, and if we can make sure that people have got access to, a laptop for me is that knowledge, that sharing that I've had my entire life. That is giving somebody a window to the world on knowledge, and what beauty can be created by that and shared. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of heartbroken to hear that we've taken those things back, because and I'd love to learn more about the work that you do and the people that you support. And I think of the privilege I've had, particularly to travel the British Isles, but everywhere I've been, as I say, a third of the world, 90% of people want the same things in life. They want to look after their family, they want to see people succeed, they want happiness, and they want to love. That's, pretty much it. So it doesn't matter where you are. And I believed in the distribution of wealth, Douglas. So, I come from a very gorgeous part of South Cumbria. There was a county called Westmoreland. that there's a market town, and there wasn't really poverty, but there wasn't really great wealth. But it's certainly not distributed. But I had to leave at the age of 17 for work. Now, I was lucky. I stayed in the UK. I came down to the south of England. Other people my age went all over the world. But I believe now, COVID did something else. It distributed work. But in 2006-07, I started with my companies by having some people in the office, but a quarter of the staff worked from home. So we did distribute work. And I believe with British SMEs, as we grow and we invest in them, we can invest in new communities in some of the hardest to reach places. And I've seen this in my own hometown. When big companies came in, wealth grew and prospered. But when they left, they took that prosperity with them as well. So I'd like to see, and my companies that I'm building are about sustainability. I really want to see them transcend me. I'm not one of those people who says, hey, I've had 5 exits and I'm great. I'm like, no, I'd like to start something that is going to transcend my lifetime, and it's going to give work and solutions to society. I honestly believe you can have a company that adds value to society and its solutions in health technology. It can be profitable. You can look after people, and you can take people with you, and you can create sustainability. To me is about creating good workflows. But you're right about the people. There's more work, and the quality of that work, we can raise the bar and let people stretch themselves and let the machines do some of the more easier to do stuff.
Yeah, the heavy lifting. So I'm very conscious of your time, Shane, and like I keep saying, this is a privilege. This is a highlight for me. So you have to forgive me for being ultra excited. If we can project into 2024 very quickly, and also looking back in terms of what trends were supposed to emerge in 2023, where do you see the focus should be on in health?
Okay, so I'm more inclined to talk about where it should be going next year and what we can do about it. But I think there's been a bit of hiatus and stagnation by our government and its lack of ability to decide on things, and the challenges we've got with finances. And we've seen money disappear because we're saying, we've got to pay for the strikes now, we'll take it out of technology funds. Do you know what? I've heard that so many times in my career, and it was nothing to do with strikes then. I think they're somewhat unimaginative. So I'd like to see in the future, we come up with methodologies, and I am trying to raise this with some senior people in the NHS. Let's work with companies who are prepared to charge for things in different ways, because we have capital budgets and OPEX budgets about how we buy things. I also think there's a lot of technology that's paid for today in our health and care system that's probably inefficient and overpriced because it has had a 20, 30-year lifespan and there's been an RPI uplift all the time. Actually, there's probably an opportunity here to remove some of that, use existing revenues, and replace that with newer technologies that do smarter things and that can be used in a wider area. So I think what we need to do is not just be paying the bills and using what we've got, but have a look at what we've got and say, is there something out there that's sharper? That's what I'd really love to see happen. And in 2024, so we've got some big programs going on. We've got frontline digitalization. We've now got federated data platform. I really think there are some gaps that particularly small to medium enterprises can fill really quickly with new charging methodologies that they're prepared to use on a revenue basis. So you pay for things as you use them, not in the typical industry fashion, which is buy a license, pay up front, pay a support fee and implement. Actually, I think a lot of companies I'm talking to are prepared to go, no, we're prepared to stick around for a while. Let's meet the standards of a framework procurement, but actually we can do this on maybe a per capita basis, a population basis. Let's make it fairer. Let's distribute that wealth a little bit more, but let's get things in and working faster. The shortage we have is people. 10% shortage of staff in the NHS and about 15% shortage of staff in care. So whatever it is we have to do, we have to be mindful that it's got to be easy to go in. We've got to implement it swiftly. We can't rely on, so much of our technology relies on the NHS saying, oh yeah, we're going to put staff up. They're not there and it's going to be slow. So let's work, I would say, compassionately, be listening, be mindful of the environment that we're working in, that it is under pressure. It's been under sustained pressure now for nearly 7 years. And the shortages are getting worse, but the workload is going up. And the people who are involved in that work, I think they're the gods. They're the heroes, Douglas. They won't want to be called that. But they're the people who go in, I know you said be quick, but I can't help but tell this story. My wife has a dear friend, and she's a cleaner in the school, and she wouldn't mind me telling this story. She's 79. She does 2 shifts at the local district general hospital a week at 79. And she does a Sunday shift from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. She's 79, just had a hip replaced. And they asked her if she could go in 2 hours earlier to start at 6 a.m. on a Sunday because they're short-staffed. And I think, and she's an ordinary nurse on the ward at 79. Is that right? Are we that short? You know? So how can we alleviate things? Let's open our minds. And those of our friends who are using technology or in the health environment, let's help them open their minds. To me, this is going back to what I said. It's not about selling. It's not about buying. It's about educating people on choices that they can make and get them involved and enthused. And I do believe that if you are enthused and it's the right thing and you involve people, then your success rate goes up, your happiness rate goes up, you get through the workload better, and actually everybody wins. It's a much better life.
Wow. I can see why you're a mentor. And I can see that. And also, the last question, and this is the bonus one. When you are such a colorful character, or such a unique individual, you got gravitas, you know, you the package is there. Do you find it equally being a challenge to your mentees that they try to be Shane version 1.2 instead of being themselves?
I don't. Look, firstly, I'm going to say this. You said some very kind things, Douglas. I don't see me. I don't understand what other people see. I genuinely don't. I know I have some strengths, but like when I chair the council, because I've chaired it a lot, even as vice chair, people say, you know, thanks for the chairing that you've done. I'm like, I have no idea what it's like to be chaired by me. And therefore, I don't know what it's like to be mentored by me. But I don't think people say, I want to be like that guy. I hope what I do is I give them vignettes or a chapter. I hope when, you know, some people says to me, have you always been like this? And I go, no. I have been insecure. I have cried my eyes out. I have been terrified for years. I have felt physically sick. And I get upset every day. And it's not that I hide it. I've started to write about some of the things. But I don't think they would want to be me, and I would never want somebody to be me. But I have heard somebody say to me, oh yeah, I was in this boardroom and this chairman wasn't adding value, so I got a bit shaney with him. I said, well, I'm not sure what that is, but I take it as a compliment. And if it's how you feel, then that's what matters. And Douglas, you know, I'll take a bit of Douglas away tonight. And I think whether you're reading a book or you're watching a film or you've watched somebody just take the bits that mean something to you, but always be yourself. But you know, you've said some lovely, kind things, but I have no idea what it's like to and I never watch these things back or listen to them back, really. I've got to be honest, because I can't bear to watch myself. Not at all.
Really?
No, I cringe. I just cringe. Yeah.
You know what? I used to be like that.
The best thing, I think, Douglas, the best thing you can say to somebody is just be yourself. And I think the one thing I would say is I do cringe every day. And I think, oh, God, that's hard. Oh, it's going to be awful. But I'm going to do it anyway and see what happens. And, you know, maybe 65% of the time it's okay.
No, I think it's a beautiful thing because I'm a very visual person as well. So I like to draw upon a council of elders when I'm in a jam or when I feel I don't have enough confidence. You know, and I go on my virtual walk on the beach with my council of elders. Could have Nelson Mandela this side. I could have Bill Gates on that side. I could have, and I imagine what they will be saying if I go to them for my problem. I say, like, Bill, you know what? This is what's happening here. You know, how will he respond to me? You know, my council of elders. You know, I even got Eubanks here. I put Eubanks in there last week because I need a bit of humor. So sometimes you need, you know. It's flattering, but I think the whole point of knowledge, I guess, is so people don't have to make the same mistakes and know that it's okay. This has been tried and it has been a tested thing, because the thin line between mentoring and, say, coaching somebody, so you throw it back, you know, you got to find your own voice. You got to do that. But when we mentor, like in the health tech space, you have to look for somebody that is in a position that you aspire to be like, who's gone. So you can't help. Sometimes I felt it when I was mentored a long time ago, but I was mentored by a woman who, she was an investment banker, Angela, big up Angela. So I was terrified of her, absolutely terrified of her. But I found myself copying her her traits.
Can I just say one thing? You've just hit it on the head there, and it's just been mindful. Whatever it is that I am today, and I don't know what that is, but I will say this. It is absolutely true that when you're scared, whether somebody has scared you because you've had to raise your game. I've got some people around me, and they just make me want to be a better person. But it is the toughest of times. It is being away from your family for months on end. It is getting up in the middle of the night and not going back to your bed until the next middle of the night. It is being scared out of your wits. That's where you grow. It's not outside your comfort zone. It is being scared out of your wits and pushing yourself. And I would say this, nobody ever said, I wish I never went on that walk. And it's what I see is when you go for a challenge of a new thing, it's kind of like, you know what, when you get to the other side of it, you never really go, I wish I'd never done it. Because you kind of get the other side of it. And it's like walking up a mountain in the Lake District. You get to the top, and by golly, that last bit is really hard. But by golly, when you get there, the view is awesome. And when you get down at the bottom and you think, oh man, that was something else. That is what a challenge is. Get outside your comfort zone on something worthwhile and something that's bigger than you. And therefore, you're not frightened because it's about the mission. Just pick something you love and you're passionate about and do it for other people. Do it for the people that you adore and you love, whether they're here with you now or whether they're somebody that loved that's no longer here for you. Find that, and that will take you anywhere, my friend.
Well, wow. There's no better way to close. There's no better way to close. That's a mic drop to close. That's one of the epic closes I've ever had. All I would say is, Shane, keep doing with the great work that you're doing. You know, the listeners, you know, follow Shane on LinkedIn. Just see what this individual is doing. There are some bright, brilliant minds out there. And a lot of clinicians are despondent. We're burnt out. You know, we've had the talk. We've had so much tech that's failed. You know, the graveyard of tech is in most hospitals, but now there are going to be solutions. And I tell people all the time, leverage AI for yourself as your little co-pilot, you know, just to give yourself, you know, 5 minutes extra of your children, you know, that's what it can do for you. And then keep pushing that way. And again, the work you're doing at universities as well, honorary lecturer, you know, there's a big piece about re-educating the educators. It's so important because I know when I was trained, I wasn't trained to do record keeping. However, how many nurses now, doctors, social workers, allied health professionals are being trained around AI in that space? You know, so there's a bigger piece, and I'm so glad that you're on that mission. You know, moving that direction.
That's right. Encourage people. What more can you do? Because I think we're at the foothills. And that ambient gathering of information, and what can it automatically go and do for you? Yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah, we're at the precipice. I feel like we're about to jump. I feel like humanity is about to make a big jump. Like literally just holding our breath, and we're about to, and nobody knows what the free fall is going to be like. I just feel like...
I hope we're wise enough, though, not to waste this opportunity and use it for good, because we can take the entire population. You know, there's still 1 billion people out there without clean water. There's hundreds of millions of people without sanitation. There's, you know, millions of people that's less than $2 a day. So, you know, whatever we're doing here in the UK, and it's not in different continents, we have that poverty here as well. Let's take people with us. And you know, it's not about what we can keep to and gather for ourselves. What can you give that probably costs you nothing? That knowledge, that inspiration, that courage to give somebody to do something. Douglas, I have to thank you for this opportunity because it's inspiring talking to you, and your own work and the things that you do, you know, really make me quite emotional as well. And, you know, you're an inspiration to me. So thank you very much for letting me talk to you, but you're the man.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a big tick off my bucket list. And I think I'm going to keep going back to the bucket. So, no, Shane, I look forward to catching up with you in real FaceTime, in the physical, and just chopping up with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Keep going.
For spending your time. Have a great afternoon, evening, and fantastic Christmas.
Okay, guys, everybody ready?
Yeah, you too, my friend. You too.
Take care. Look after yourself. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out micdropclub.com and get the show notes and useful links. Subscribe to the podcast. Don't just live life, Make life boom.